Hey, my special ass, beautiful ass, magical ass goddesses. It's me back with another video. I wanted to talk about the dark night of the soul. What is it? What exactly it entails? Just the journey in general, because I don't necessarily think that a lot of people talk about it in depth enough for people to really understand what to expect. I'm sorry, I'm outside and I'm trying to avoid bugs right now because the struggle is real. Anyway, so yeah, what is the dark night of the soul? Well, the dark night of the soul is basically the Most High making you confront every single fear you have face on, whether you like it or not, whether you want to or not, whether you are ready to or not. The universe doesn't really care. The dark night of the soul is almost like an initiation, right? You will be put through a series of tests in confronting your fears, overcoming said fears, and then moving on to the next level. And then it's in this process that you are able to figure out situations clearly, see people clearly, but most importantly, one of the biggest things that you get from the dark night of the soul is, in turn, you kind of become fearless. When you realize that you could face all of the challenges ahead of you, and you were able to figure it all out and have the strength to do so, after that, it kind of activates this portal to where you just realize that you're really capable of doing and accomplishing anything you can set your mind to. A lot of people with the dark night of the soul, first of all, it probably takes most of us a good amount of time to realize that we're going through it. And oddly enough, you will generally experience your dark night of the soul right after your spiritual awakening. I want to say I probably started my dark night of the soul about 5 or 6 months after my awakening process began, right? And it will just feel like a series of events that just constantly go wrong. I mean, if I could explain to y'all all the shit I had to go through during my dark night of the soul. And the fact that I am a Libra really didn't make it any better, because something would happen and then I would try to overthink my way out of it or try to find some type of solution. And the harder I worked to try to find a solution to something, generally the harder it was to get out of that situation, right? Because another part of the dark night of the soul is not also you confronting your fears, but another part of the dark night of the soul is you being able to sharpen your powers of discernment, and you also learning to trust more in the universe and how it's guiding you, what direction it's guiding you in. So it definitely kind of gets all over the place, and it can be very mentally confusing. Probably like the last year of my dark night of the soul, I mean, I really feel like my guys and ancestors was like, we're gonna wear this bitch out, okay? Like, because I generally like to have, a plan A, B, C, D through Z, and then, plan double A, double B, double C. And part of my process in this dark night of the soul was realizing that I did not have control over everything, and that's how it was meant to be. Some things I just had to let the universe intervene and let those situations kind of play out, right? I lost so much during my dark night of the soul. Like, I literally everything I had gone. I mean, almost like overnight too. But that was one of the biggest fears that I had to confront. Losing cars, losing homes, being homeless, not knowing what the fuck I was gonna do next. I mean, it created literally the most stressful time that I've ever had in my life. And as a single parent, like, that says a lot, because any of my single moms out there knows how stressful being a single parent is. And so it took a lot for me to just kind of sit back and just let things play out. Because initially what I was trying to do was trying to control the process, trying to control the outcome of the process, trying to control certain situations that weren't for me to control. I think it got to the point where I just got so worn out from trying to control all of these situations. I was just like, forget this. Like, okay, I give up. I mean, that's what I really feel. I really feel like, I just got to a point where the universe was like, we gonna wear this bitch out. Probably because they knew that would be the only way where I would actually sit down and stop trying to force situations, which is also another part of the dark night of the soul, is you learning not necessarily how to force situations, but A, how to have trust in the universe, and B, how to have trust in yourself, right? So many times my intuition would tell me things like, I'd be like, oh, I'm going to go try and do this for money because, I had a lot of issues and hard times with finances. And so I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to try to do this for money. And of course, it wouldn't work out. And then I would, as a last resort, I would try something that my intuition was telling me to try first. And then, it would work out in my favor. And I'm just like, I am literally making things harder than they need to be at this point. So, learning to trust yourself through the darkest times is essential to the dark night of the soul, because it's the only way that you make it out. Nothing that you perceive as logical or right is going to be right, because you're learning a whole new way of being. You're literally being reprogrammed from the top of you down to the very bottom of you. And sometimes the most powerful change comes through chaos, right? If the Most High himself just came down and told us, hey, I need you to do A, B, and C, would you do it? Maybe. Would you be able to do it as well as if you had to figure it out on your own? Probably not. So it is not to get discouraged, because trust me, there were times in the middle of my dark night of the soul, like I would just start ripping off crystals and throwing them all over the room and kicking my tarot cards like, I don't want to do this anymore, fuck this, out of frustration. But 2 seconds later, I'd humble myself like, I'm sorry, spirit. But, it can be a very frustrating time. What often makes this even more of a frustrating time is that a lot of things that you're used to, like, hanging around certain friends, family members, being in certain environments, well, after your awakening, those things just they're not going to do it for you anymore. And so then what ends up happening is, not only are you going through this experience, but oftentimes you have to go through it alone. So there's really no one to talk to about it, although you always have the Most High to talk to about it. But it can be just a very isolating time. The one thing that I did learn through my dark night of the soul is that everything that didn't work out in my favor, or what I perceived wasn't working out in my favor, actually was. It always led me to something bigger. It always led me to something better that I hadn't even imagined. Or it saved me from situations that later on down the line would have become a problem. What's a good example of that? Man. I think the best example of that would probably be in relationships. I have had to cut off my own family members. And because I'm a Libra, I've mastered the art of detachment. Give zero fucks about it. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't faze me. It is what it is, and I'll catch on to it next lifetime if it was meant to be that way. But for the most part, I knew that there were certain family members of mine that couldn't go on this journey with me. And no matter how much I fought it, my ancestors in spirit would just do things to make sure, like, okay, like, you still not getting it? All right, this is not happening. You still not getting it? Okay, let me throw this at you. Okay, you still not getting it. Until it got to the point where I couldn't ignore it. My intuition was telling me what I needed to do, and everything from the Most High was telling me what I needed to do. So it definitely gets difficult at times. And it gets lonely at times, but just know you have to trust the process. You have to. I definitely would not be the same person. I would not think the same way I do. I would not perceive life the way I do had I not been through some of those experiences. Another dime that I would kind of offer to you guys is that when you're going through your dark night of the soul, just like, don't run from it. Just don't. I did that for so much of the beginning of the dark night of the soul. And it fucked me up in multiple ways. The biggest way that became a detriment to me was because I was so busy focused on how to get out of those situations that I wasn't focused on what I should have been getting out of the situation, meaning the lesson. And so then what would happen is that, I would have something else happen and I'm like, oh, it kind of reminds me of this. And then I would kind of start to analyze the situation, and then I would have to put myself back in that same thick, heavy, burdensome type of energy in order for me to remember what it was that I was going through, and then extract the lesson out of it that I should have learned in the first place. Is that something in my... Oh, yes. Whatever. So yeah, don't try to rush the process. Be as perfectly still through the process as you can, so that you can get as much out of the process as you can. Because if not, it is really, really, really going to suck if you have to take yourself when you're in a good place and then put yourself back when you were in a bad place to try to remember all of those feelings and emotions. Like, just don't do it. Don't do it. Get the lesson the first time, go about your business. It may be a little difficult to kind of see the finish line, but most of the time that's what they don't want you to see. They just want you to trust the process and go through the range of emotions and go through the healing, so that you can become a better, much stronger version of yourself. So if you have any questions, or if you'd like to set up anything for coaching, you can send me an email at divinefemrising11@gmail.com. And until next time, take care, ladies. Bye.